2021. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears.
Present.
Counselor Falco.
Present.
Vice President Knight. Counselor Marks. Counselor Marks is absent.
Absent at the moment.
Counselor Morell.
Present.
Counselor Scarpelli. Counselor Scarpelli is going to be late, I believe.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 5 in affirmative, 2 absent. Please rise and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 38, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Medford City Council will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for the remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the City of Medford website at www.medford.org. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen or watch the meeting may do so by accessing the meeting link contained herein. No in-person attendance of the members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we're able to do so, despite the best efforts, we will post on the City of Medford or Medford Community website an audio or video recording transcript or other comprehensive recordings of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Okay,
Mr. President,
Councilor Bears.
motion to suspend the rules to take paper 21-202, updates from Director of Public Health, Marianne O'Connor.
There's Marianne O'Connor. On the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by.
Second.
Second by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Counselor Marks is absent. Counselor Morell.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 3 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, 2 absent.
It's 4 in the affirmative, 1 in the
Is there 4 in the absent? Good evening, Marianne.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. Marianne, if you can give us a little update on what's happening.
Sure. Happy to. Thanks for having me. Good evening, everybody. So we have good news today. Our Metro North collaboration, regional collaboration with the other communities, our dispensing site at the Tufts Gancher Center is going to be live and ready to go this week. So as of tomorrow and Thursday, there will be appointments available. Kind of limited tomorrow and Thursday, but we will be building up. So that is kicking off, and that's great news because as a collaborating community, we get certain allocations. So because of that, we get an allocation of doses that we can use, and we are going to be able to offer a clinic at the high school Thursday afternoon for Medford High School students ages 16 plus, because it is the Pfizer vaccine. Certainly kids ages 16 and 17 will need parental consent. They don't need their parents to be with them, but they actually do have to bring in the consent form. The school is putting out information today and will again tomorrow. And that's really exciting because we've seen, luckily we've seen our cases finally starting to decline a little bit. We've been seeing single digits for the first time in a long time as far as daily case counts go. But it's really interesting in that the majority of our cases are under 20-year-olds, or 20 and under year olds, and split really half and half. So we want to get our students, our kids vaccinated. We're hoping that next week the FDA goes forward with the EUA approval for Pfizer to actually be able to vaccinate 12 to 15-year-olds. And again, with this collaboration, We believe going forward, we'll have doses. We'll be able to actually continue to do some clinics that we, can move forward with our students and our children. So that's really exciting news because that's what we're seeing now, the majority of our cases. And that's good news. We're not seeing a lot of cases I think we had 2 cases in 80-year-olds and under 5 at 70-year-olds. So we know that the vaccine has been out there. We've done about 4,000 doses as the Board of Health for the city of Medford. So that's about 2,000 plus totally vaccinated. That's 2 doses, right? So about over 2,000 folks we've been able to vaccinate, and the majority of that was our elders. So we're glad to see that. We're seeing less hospitalizations, less severe illness. So it's a good thing. But we're not out of the woods yet. And even though the state is loosening up on some of its gathering limits and requirements, we're vaccinated or not, we're still asking people, wear your masks, socially distance. Let's keep this up until we get it done. So, but certainly things are looking better. So,
Marianne, how are the nursing homes doing?
very well. I know I haven't heard any cases of them. Most of their clients have been vaccinated. They do take on COVID positive people. But I know like the Medford Rehab has not seen a positive case in a long time. And the same with Glenridge. And so they're doing much better. Oh gosh, so much better.
Thank you. Any questions for Marianne?
Mr. President.
Council Morrow?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for being here, Marianne. So just to confirm for the vaccination site at Tufts, is the way to register for that is still through that state website?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. Actually, there's a chat function here that I will put in the chat. You can go through the MassVac site, the typical, on the website, the MassVac site. It's a little harder to find, but you can do, you'll find an exact link for the Gancher Center at Tufts if you put in your zip code. But I'll put in chat the specific one because it does say Metro North, and that takes you right to the Gancher Center. So that'll be operating 11 to 4 right now on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Hopefully we'll be able to expand that going forward, but as far as the doses go right now. So out of this collaborative, we have 3 sites. We have the Encore Casino is offering. We have the Gancher Center at Tufts. And as of next week, we will have what's currently the Cambridge Health Alliance, used to be, I believe, a Target in Somerville that they're using now. That'll come online next week. But this week, it's the Gancher and the Encore are accepting appointments for tomorrow and Thursday. So
Great.
I will put that in the chat. But
you.
yes, you go through the MassVac site, you'll be able to find it as well.
Okay, thank you. And are all of those sites are appointment only, none are walk-in, those are all appointments only?
We're working towards walk-in because access is important, and I know people are intimidated by the process of even going online trying to find an appointment. So our goal is to be able to accept walk-ins. We're just starting this week, so we want to get staffing up, but walk-ins, I think, is definitely our goal going forward. Last week, we were lucky enough, Tufts had extra doses that they had purchased for their students. And when they didn't have them all fulfilled, we put it out there. And I think on that Thursday or Friday last week, they had 300 appointments and 400 walk-ins. So they did 700 in that day and 400 of those walk-ins. So we can do it. But we want to make sure that, we're able to publicize it the right way. So walk-ins is definitely our goal.
Okay, great. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for being here. There was a story recently in Kaiser Health News about what local directors of public health have really been dealing with for the past 14 months, above and beyond just the actual work, kind of the the stress of the job. So I really appreciate just what you've done and what your team has done. So thank you again.
Mary Ann, CVS is doing them also, I think.
Yes,
Okay.
CVS and Walgreens are there, and I believe they're working towards walk-ins as well. That's pretty much everyone's goal right now, as far as we want to get folks who have a little bit of hesitancy or a little bit of nervousness about access. They can finally use that registration site. So everyone's goal is going really towards walk-ins, but Walgreens and CVS, yes, and they're pretty easy to get appointments at this point.
Thank you. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Mary Ann, when you were last here, we spoke a lot about how busy your office was. And at that time, you indicated that your office was working about 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you had about between 9 and 11 employees. Is that still the case?
It's better. We're not working as much weekends now. And things are getting a little bit easier. The contact tracing is, again, we're in single digit cases, which is nice to see. And we are going to be able to hopefully keep offering clinics. But certainly it feels better. It feels better. That we're not putting in as many hours as was required earlier.
Has loosened the restrictions on outdoor gatherings. What impact does that have on the rental of our public facilities here in the city of Medford?
So outdoor events, as of May 19th, you're going to be able to have 250 folks at outdoor gatherings. Indoors, they're talking 200. That will be as of May 19th. They have already loosened the restrictions and rescinded a lot of the guidance on certain sectors, but certain sectors are still, but we're expecting a lot of that to change. Like even as of May 10th, they're talking about like the pool restrictions will be changing. They rescinded the beach restrictions. So when you're talking about Tufts Pool and Wrights Pond, like things are definitely opening up.
Is really with the fields, because the fields are a revenue generating entity that we have here in this community. When you were last here, we discussed a little bit about how the permitting process has changed. Ultimately those fields do about $215,000 a season each. So we're approaching close to $700,000 in the rental of those fields. They're a revenue generating entity. And my concern is that we're not missing out on applicants that are seeking to rent our fields when there are vacancies because of bureaucracy and bureaucratic delays.
So as of right now, their safety plans are still in the guidance is still in place for sports. I've been reviewing all of the rental requests. I haven't denied any of them. They have their safety plans, and that's all we've been requiring, that they tell us they're gonna, fulfill the guidance and adhere to their safety plans. So nothing has been denied. And as restrictions loosen up as far as spectators and that type of thing, which has not changed, the sports guidance will probably change by the end of the month. But as of right now, it's still in place. So it's just we're going with the safety plans, but nothing's been denied. There's still applications are coming in daily for soccer and.
On that point, Mr. President, have applications not been acted upon?
No, they've all been acted upon.
I don't know.
So I've spoken with a number of entities that have requested to use field space that have said, on a Thursday afternoon, they find out that there's a vacancy at Medford, and then they ask them to use the field space, and then they never get a response, and then they don't get to use the field space that weekend.
I don't know who they're asking. I can't speak to that.
A very popular ultimate frisbee group, the Whitecaps, actually. If you remember back a few years ago, the city of Medford was actually featured on ESPN's top 10 moments when someone at Hormel Stadium made an amazing ultimate frisbee catch. I don't really know what that means, but there was somebody that made a great play, and they were on ESPN. That was recorded at Hormel Stadium, and that group, the Whitecaps, which historically used the field, in my experience, they've never had a problem until recently. Do we know? So in terms of applications that come in per week, how many applications are you looking at?
I haven't seen any this week, but I think we're up to date with all the applications we've gotten. The last one we did was we had jumbo soccer. I think I did an ultimate frisbee one actually. I did an adult women's soccer. So they're up to date. So whatever applications are in-house have all been processed and they've gone on to the Home Health Stadium Commission.
And how does it work now? So an application will go into where?
It comes into the mayor's office. There's a checklist. It comes to me next for approval as far as the safety plans are concerned. And once I approve that, it goes on to the Home Health Commission. And we're up to date as far as I know.
So it goes to the mayor's office. What's the mayor's office do? Just send it to your office?
There's a checklist. They have their own checklist around, I believe, insurance requirements and those types of things that
Right, that's.
I'm only involved in the safety
The
plans.
field administrator handled that for 100 years. That never came out of the mayor's office.
Mhm.
Recently. Usually the way it would work would be that the application would go into the field administrator. The field administrator would check for availability. If the availability was there, they'd secure the field for the applicant. The applicant would then fill out the paperwork. If the paperwork wasn't completed and the payment wasn't attached, then the applicant wouldn't get to use the field. It seems like it was a little bit more streamlined and it was a little bit more of a guarantee that we were getting some money in our coffers. My disappointment with the process is well known and well publicized, Madam Director, and I'm hoping that with the restrictions that are being loosened by the administration at the state level, that they will also be loosened at this level. I feel.
Yeah, I think there was just a problem that they were being able to be scheduled before their safety plans were approved. So
Yeah,
now
or-
that's been
or-
addressed.
Or it could be micromanaging.
But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
It could be micromanaging as well. But I just think that it's a really, over bureaucratic and unnecessary step.
It's requirements from the state that we have to follow. So that's what we're
I
doing.
don't think anybody hasn't been.
Now it is, but that's okay.
Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mary Ann, thank you very much for your update and hard work of you and your department. Quick question regarding the vaccination clinics at Tufts University. So is that indefinitely every Wednesday and Thursday?
Going forward, we're hoping we'll expand it to more days than just Wednesday and Thursday. But as far as vaccine availability right now from the state, it looks like Wednesdays and Thursday at least are definite. But we're hoping to expand to more days going forward.
Thank you. And with regard to mobile vaccination, I believe we talked about that before. Can you give us an update? Are we still, or does the city still have a mobile vaccination program?
As far as the homebound goes?
Yeah, correct.
So we're still taking folks if they're interested in needing a homebound vaccination, they can certainly still contact us. But we completed our list. I think we have 3 people maybe left this week to do. So we've done pretty close to 200 people have been completed as far as homebound vaccinations go. But again, if people still need, they can still contact our multi-resource line, multilingual resource line, and be happy to put them on a list and get them done. We do have J&J vaccine for homebound if folks are interested in it. So certainly, please call us.
Thank you. And last time we talked a little bit about, I believe there was about populations that were not maybe hesitant towards getting the vaccine. Are we working, I believe you had mentioned that we were working maybe with the state, or there was another program that the city was working with to get people that were vaccine hesitant vaccinated. Is that still in play?
Yes, we are launching that campaign very soon. So there is vaccine hesitancy we found among different groups. We have information, we're kind of targeting it by sector, so faith-based, business info. And we will be holding a town hall on May 19th. We're hoping to access the ambassadors that the state have already hired and have in place that speak multi languages and are culturally aware, and they can come out and, depending on where we're holding our events, they can come out and speak to people with specific issues. But there will be we're planning on a town hall on May 19th to hopefully address people's fears and issues around, vaccine hesitancy.
Will that be via Zoom?
Yes, via Zoom. Would love to be. We're looking at a couple different options, right? We may be able to hold it in different locations, and then also via Zoom. So
Great. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mary Ann.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. Motion to be read back to regular business. On motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Falcon. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
To revert to the regular order of business.
Refer back to regular order of business.
Council Bears.
Yes.
Council Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Council Marks.
Yes.
Council Morel.
Yes.
Council Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent. Motion passed. Hearings. 2145, legal notice, City of Medford, CDBG Annual Action Plan, public hearing, and 30-day public comment period. A virtual public hearing will be held by the Medford City Council on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 via remote video conferencing. Conferencing details will be posted on the city clerk's office prior to the hearing. The purpose of this public hearing will be to invite the general public and representatives of public service agencies to express comments regarding the city's annual action plan for community development and planning. The action plan contains proposed use of community development block grant funds for the program year, which extends from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. The Office of Community Development will be requesting that the Medford City Council authorize Mayor Brian McLaren, official representative of the City of Medford, to submit the annual action plan application for funds and all other assurances and certifications to the U.S. Departments of Housing and Urban Development. The city is applying for $1,546,988 in block grant funds beginning April 12, 2020. The annual draft action plan will be available for review and comment and can be obtained by contacting the Office of Community Development at 781-393-2480 or OCD at medford/ma.gov. Written comments must be submitted no later than May 12, 2021 to Ashley Williams, City Hall, 85 George P. Hessett Drive, room 308, FMS 02155, or A. Williams at medfordmass.gov. Okay. Do we have where this is a public hearing, do we have anyone here speaking in favor of this?
Mr. President, if I may,
Vice President Knight.
I think it might make sense that we just give a brief breakdown. I have the paper in front of me actually of the agency that's applied for the funding and the recommendation for the upcoming CDBG fiscal year's block grant that's being made by the Office of Community Development to the administration. That recommendation would go to the mayor, and then the mayor would have the opportunity to either say, I like the recommendation, or she can use her executive authority to change that recommendation, Mr. President. But in looking at this, I think it's important that we do inform the general public of what it is exactly that's being appropriated. So if we look at Bread of Life, they'd be recommended for the fiscal year $2,603. For Communitas Incorporated, $5,045. For Community Family Inc., $5,000. For the Medford Council on Aging, $34,200. For Housing Families Incorporated, $13,000. For the Immigrant Learning Center, $6,200. For the Medford Consumer Advisory Commission, $15,000, Mr. President. For the Medford Public Schools, $10,000. For the YMCA Mystic Community Market Boys and Girls Club, $10,000. For the Mystic Valley Elder Services, $5,000. For SCM Transportation, $105,000. And for the West Medford Community Center, $21,000, Mr. President. We have a total award for FY 21-22 of $1,546,988 with 15% cap waived, allowing the public service entities to be afforded $232,048.
Thank you. Alicia Hunt, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. President. As the Community Development Director, I am here to present the paper if necessary or to answer any questions. I also want to acknowledge that Ashley Williams, who is the staff person that administrates this grant, is also here this evening. She's the one that comments would be going to. This was advertised starting in mid-April. To date, Ashley informs me that we have not received any public comments outside of the meetings that we had with the city council on this. And shortly before the public comment section time opened, we had a public meeting and we received comments at that public meeting. Those have been incorporated into this plan already. So if there are further questions.
You are in favor of this petition? Thank you. Is there anyone else in favor of this petition? Hearing seeing none, we close this portion of the hearing. Is there anyone here that is in opposition to this plan? Hearing and seeing none, we close that part of the meeting.
Mr. President, if I may,
Vice President Knight.
speaking as a citizen, Adam Knight, 200 Woburn Street, I'd like to see an increase in the funding for the Medford Consumer Commission. I think we have an opportunity here to really build upon some of the successes that we've made and the strides that we've made over the past years. And this represents a reduction in benefits and an award from last year. And I think that that's something that should be looked at a little bit further. The individuals that are employed in the Medford Consumer Commission work right here out of City Hall. They provide a valuable service to many of the residents here in this community, especially our senior citizens who have been falling victim to many of these COVID-19 scams, Social Security scams, and the like. So with that being said, Mr. President, I would like to speak out in opposition to the current protocols that are the current recommendations that are in there, and request that the Consumer Commission be afforded additional funds in line with at least last year's award.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I have received several calls from people that have used that office, and we're happy with the results of that office. So I too support the additional funding if it is available.
Mr. President.
Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wholeheartedly agree with Vice President Knight. But I remember at the public hearing, and if someone can correct me if I'm wrong, the mayor was going to supplement the decrease in funding in the community block grant money with money in the FY22 budget. Is that not correct, Mr. President?
You are correct.
So we did receive a commitment, and maybe Alicia can speak to that. Was that a commitment that was made by the city
Alicia?
administration?
Alicia?
Mr. President, thank you. Yes. So to be clear, last year we were allowed to not follow the cap of 15% of the CDBG funds. So we were able to provide additional funding to several communities or to several organizations, including that organization. This organization is actually receiving an increase from the amount that they had been. Every other organization was level funded from previous years, from multiple previous years. And this is the one public service agency that we were able to increase by actually decreasing a different public service. This year, in order to increase that agency, we would have to decrease one of the other agencies' funding on the list. Because there is a cap this year. There was not a cap last year because of the pandemic. The mayor has committed to increasing the funding. So this office has not previously received budget funding for personnel and salaries in the city's budget. The mayor has informed me and has informed the director of that office that she will be supplementing that budget this year in the city's general fund budget, which is new this year. In the past, they've only received a budget for office supplies.
Mr. President, do we have an indication of what the dollar amount will be?
I do not have Alicia, do we have an indication what the dollar amount will be?
She did not tell me specifically, so I don't want to misrepresent it. She did indicate that she would make up what we couldn't provide, but she didn't use numbers.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So we will close that part of the meeting for those in opposition. Okay. Do we have a motion on the floor to accept the plan?
Well, I think, Mr. President, what we have to, it's a 30-day public comment period.
Yes, when we vote on this night, it will be put in the paper for the 30-day comment period.
So it requires a vote tonight to
It does.
put it in for a 30-day comment period?
No, it doesn't. The 30-day comment period closes on actually the May 11th. Sorry, that number was, the date was just in the hearing that you read. Our hope would be that you would vote to approve it this evening so that we could submit it the day after the comment period closes, assuming that we don't receive any further comments. The one other thing, I actually have a request. Several counselors commented that they received comments about this amount and that they went directly to the counselors. Please direct residents to send public comment to Ashley or to OCD, as is in the in the hearing notice. Because this is a federal program, we need to receive the comments with names and addresses directly in order to technically take them into account. We're happy to take the counselor's requests into account, and that's why we're here to do that. But we really need the residents to contact our office directly so that we can include that information when we do our filings with the federal government. They prefer not to get hearsay.
On that point,
Vice
Mr.
President
President,
Knight.
on that point, Mr. President, what's the purpose of us having a public hearing then? If the people that come here and make comment in favor or opposition aren't counted towards the decision-making process?
So tonight, your name and address will go on that list of public comment, but all the residents that you have heard from, we don't have their names and addresses on our list. They're not here making the comments. And we'll just submit it. We'll submit it with the comments that we have, but we do submit the public comments to the federal government. And I'm going to submit a comment that says that the counselor received comments from residents making this request. I think that those voices would be louder if we also had their names and addresses.
That's what I'm concerned about. I spoke as a citizen in opposition and asked for an increase in this funding in this line item. Now, if my voice isn't going to be heard or recorded, I have a
All
problem
right,
with that.
I just said that your name and address will be recorded. But there was a comment that you'd heard from many residents. I'm just asking that residents be directed to send us their comments for the record.
I have told residents to call. Once you
Thank
call
you.
me, you did ask them to call your office and the mayor's office.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? On the motion by Councilor Marks for approval, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Marks. Yes. Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 16 affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much. Thank you.
Motions, orders, and resolutions, 21346, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council requests the DPW address the following items. 1, sidewalk hole in front of Highland Development on Winchester Street at Albion Street. 2, deep pothole at 3rd Street and Bradbury across from Harris Park basketball court. 3, sidewalk trip hazard at 436 Riverside Avenue. 4, sidewalk trip hazard and tree inspection at 32 Walter Street. 5, bicycle frame attached to the pole on Bradley Road near the credit union. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. As you can see, one might guess that opening day for Medford Little League has happened, and I've been spending a lot of time down the fields and also a lot of time in various neighborhoods in our community. And through my travels, I have been approached by a variety of our residents here in the community requesting service requests. Some of these requests, I did direct the citizenry to go into SeeClickFix. Some of them I didn't, but you'll see some of these on SeeClickFix right now, Mr. President. Sidewalk hole, majority of them are public safety issues, trip hazards. The bicycle frame attached to the pole on Bradley Road is something that I think should be addressed immediately. It's been there for about a month and a half, Mr. President. It's been stripped down now to just a bicycle frame, no tires, no seat, no pedals. It's just literally a frame of a bike attached to a pole, and it's been there for an extended period of time. So I'm asking that these items be addressed by our DPW or the appropriate department to rectify the situation. Sidewalk hole in front of Highland Development is a trip hazard. Deep pothole at 3rd Street in Bradbury across from Harris Park is a trip hazard, as well as the trip hazards on Riverside Avenue and Walter Street. Riverside Avenue and Walter Street are the result of tree roots, Mr. President, uplifting the sidewalk So I'd ask my council colleagues to support these measures and request that the DPW or the appropriate department take necessary and prompt action to rectify the situation.
Okay, any further questions? On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Marks, Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent, President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21347, offered by Vice President Knight, be it so resolved that the Medford City Council extend a deep and sincere congratulations to Rita Lennox on the momentous celebration of her 90th birthday. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. Rita Lennox is a lifelong Medford resident. She resides in West Medford with her husband, Peter. And there was one point in time when it could be argued that Rita was the person to call if you wanted to get anything done in the city of Medford. If you called Rita Lennox and you put Rita Lennox on it, you better believe that Mike McGlynn was getting a phone call every single hour until it got taken care of. Rita's been a great person. She's been someone who's been committed to her community, to her family, and most certainly committed to service, Mr. President. She's been a lifelong resident in this community, and because of her, Medford is a better place. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish her a happy 90th birthday on this momentous occasion. She was surrounded by friends and family and was able to celebrate it wonderfully. And I hope she has 90 more, Mr. President. So I'd ask my council colleagues to join me in supporting this resolution.
Second.
On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Vice President Knight for putting this on. Rita Lennox has been a fixture in this community for a number of years, and Councilor Knight is absolutely correct. Rita was very involved in the community and someone that was instrumental and volunteered her services for many years. I had the opportunity to work with Rita at the Registry of Deeds back some years ago, and indeed, she ran the Registry of Deeds as well, Mr. President. So Rita, in whatever capacity, was always a leader and still is a leader. And I want to congratulate her reaching her 90th birthday, Mr. President.
Thank you. So on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco, Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Counselor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent, President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21348, offered by Vice President Knight. It's so resolved that the Medford City Council extend its deep and sincere congratulations to Nancy White on the momentous celebration of her 80th birthday. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. And happy birthday to Nancy. Nancy White has been a longtime resident of Medford, very involved in the Massachusetts Democratic Party, the Medford Ward and City Committee. But she was also a wonderful educator, Mr. President, worked in the Medford Public Schools for a number of years and touched the lives of many students, mine included. So with that being said, Mr. President, Nancy White's someone that's really been an asset to our community, someone that has provided troubled youth with guidance. She's been willing to dedicate her time for progressive values that we all share. And she's someone that has truly made a difference in the city of Medford, Mr. President. So with that being said, I'd ask my council colleagues to support this resolution, wishing Nancy a happy 80th birthday, and hope she had a great day.
Thank you. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I thank Council Knight for bringing this forward. And I would also like to wish Nancy White a very happy birthday, as Council Knight stated, and have some very nice memories of Nancy. When I was in the school committee, she working in the school system, always helping out, and always helping out with the Medford Democratic Board and City Committee. I believe she was a vice chair for the longest time, and always ran a good meeting, and very nice person. And I just want to wish her a very happy birthday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Falco. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Vice President Knight for putting this on. I don't know how he gets all the birthdays, but truly, Nancy White, Mr. President, touched so many lives of students in this community for many, many decades. She was a stalwart within the school department. I consider Nancy White someone that has always been behind the scenes and the person that makes everything happen. You know, you always have the person out front that takes the credit, but Nancy White, when it came to the school department, she was the one that was behind the scenes, Mr. President, making sure the school department operated appropriately. But with the Democratic Ward and City Committee, Nancy White was the one that put together all the meetings. She was the one that sent out all the minutes. She was the one that was really driving it for so many years. And then you had a face of the committee, but we all knew where the work was taking place, and that was Nancy White. I want to congratulate her on her 80th birthday and wish her many, many more to come, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also just want to say happy birthday to Nancy. I knew Nancy for many years as part of the Medford Democratic City Committee, and I would definitely agree with Councilor Marks. She was the one pulling everyone together, making sure the meetings got done. So happy birthday, Nancy.
Thank you, Councilor Bears. And myself personally want to wish Nancy a happy birthday, both as a friend, an educator, and one of the driving forces behind the Democratic Party in the city of Medford, which many of us are involved in. Again, Nancy, happy birthday, and wish you many more. On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 16 affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21349, offered by Vice President Knight. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council requests copies of the letters of appointments for incumbents holding the titles of City Solicitor, Director of Human Resources and Diversity, and Director of Community Development. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. This was a resolution that was derivative of the conversations that we recently had over the employee classifications. The two committee of the wholes we've had the past 2 weeks on Tuesday nights. I'm asking that the administration provide us with copies of the letters of appointment for the incumbents holding the titles of City Solicitor, Director of Human Resources and Diversity, and Director of Community Development, and I guess that would be Energy and the Environment. The administration in our earlier meeting and on the meeting last week has indicated that they have these letters available. They're a public document, and I'm asking that the council be provided them so that we can include them in our records, Mr. President. As we begin our discussions for the budget, I think it'll be very interesting to see where these go with these positions. But with that being said, it's something that I think is necessary for us if we're going to move forward to be sure that we have all the documents in front of us to make a fully vetted and viable decision.
Okay, on the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by
Second.
by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli is absent. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 16 affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21350, offered by Councilor Bears and Councilor Morell. Be it so resolved that the Medford City Council congratulate Max Hennig on winning the inaugural Paul Nemser Book Prize for his poetry collection, Good Harbor. Councilor Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to defer to Councilor Bears to go first on this one.
Thank you, Councilor Morell. Thank you, Mr. President. Purpose of this resolution is just to congratulate Max Heining. He's a longtime teacher at Medford High School. He was my 10th grade English teacher and a really active community member through the Medford Brewing Company and now through his successful and award-winning poetry. So thank you to Max Heining, who I always want to call Mr. Heining. And I would like to ask the clerk to send a certificate of our congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bears. Councilor Morell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I think echoing Councilor Bears, I think it's important that we recognize our residents for their vast contribution to the arts. And Max Heinig is just one person doing this among many in our community. And I just want to read a few sentences from the award commendation. So it says, Max Heinig's Good Harbor is one of those rare collections of poems in which a confidence emerges almost immediately that we are in the hands of a poet who creates the sensation that life is writing itself. It goes on from there, but I think if people can look that up, it's a great note on one of the artists in our community. So I just want to extend my congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morell.
Mr. President.
Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Beers and Councilor Morell for putting this on. As they stated, Max Heinig has been an outstanding teacher, exemplary teacher for a number of years. He's a brewmaster and now a poet. I never knew he was a poet. And I'm thinking he may have got much of his inspiration from Medford Eel to write some of his poetry. So maybe I might try some Methadone and maybe give me a little inspiration, Mr. President. But I want to thank him for all he does in this community, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to also thank Council Morell and Council Beers for bringing this forward and congratulating Max on his achievement. As everyone has noted, Max is one of our very dedicated volunteers and a teacher in our community, and we wish him well. I just want to say congratulations. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Council Falco. And myself, I want to thank Max for being a teacher and a businessman in the community, and congratulations on this poetry collection, Good Harbor. Nico, did you have your hand up? Nico? Did I see a hand up for you? Okay, no, it's not. All right. On the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Morell. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Counselor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Morell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent, President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 absent, motion passes. 21351, offered by Vice President Knight. Whereas,
If I may, I might ask that this matter be placed on the table till Councilor Scarpelli's arrival. I spoke with him earlier in the day after the agenda came out, and he's requested that if he wasn't able to make it here in time when it came up, that I table it for to give him an opportunity to speak on this matter. Councilor Scarpelli this evening is at the National Honor Society dinner, where his son John is the president of the Medford National Honor Society, and he's given the commencement speech. So I think he's on his way to the council chambers as we speak, Mr. President. So I'm asking this be laid on the table until such time as Councilor Scarpelli is able to join us.
Second.
the motion by Vice President Knight to table this, seconded by Councilor Marks. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Counselor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Morell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli is absent, President Caraviallo.
Yes, 6 in the affirmative, 1 in the absent, motion passes. 21352, offered by Councilor Marks. Be it resolved that the Medford City Council commend and congratulate longtime Medford resident Detective Lieutenant Richard Mahoney on his recent retirement from the Massachusetts State Police. Lieutenant Richard Mahoney served with honor, integrity, and distinction the residents of Massachusetts for the past 34 years. Be it further resolved that Lieutenant Richard Mahoney receive a council commendation recognizing his dedication and commitment to all he served. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise tonight to honor one of our very own, Mr. President, and that is Detective Lieutenant Richard Mahoney, lifelong Medford resident, someone that, if you know him, Mr. President, you'll know that he loves this community. He loves his family. And, he's a gentleman that served with distinction for 34 years to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Here is a gentleman that served in very trying times, Mr. President, and has had an unblemished career for 34 years. I think that speaks volumes on the type of person that Rich Mahoney is, Mr. President. He finished his illustrious career as Detective Lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police. Every day, Mr. President, going to work, putting his life on the line to protect and serve the residents of this Commonwealth. And he did it with honor and respect. And I think that says a lot about his character, Mr. President. Rich was also very highly respected by his peers. And as he rose through the ranks, Mr. President, he got there through hard work and dedication. And his commitment to this Commonwealth, I believe, goes unmatched. And in this day and age, I hear a lot about police, about defunding the police, about police this, police that. And, it's fair to say that Rich Mahoney is one of the 99.999% of police officers that get up every day, serve the public, Mr. President, do a tremendous job, put their life on the line every day. There's not many professions you can say that. Police, fire are a few that come to mind. And that's every day not knowing if you're going to come home, Mr. President. And, I really believe that, when our officers retire, Mr. President, they shouldn't just go out with a thank you. they should go out with a warm welcome and thank you from the residents. And I want to thank Detective Lieutenant Richard Mahoney on behalf of the residents of this community, on behalf of the residents of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I want to also thank him, Mr. President, for being the family man he is, because with Rich, family comes first. And I want to thank him for all his years of dedication and ask that the city clerk send a citation to honor his career on behalf of the Commonwealth and the residents of this community. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Marks.
Mr. President.
Vice President Knight.
I certainly second Councilor Marks's motion and also his thoughts. You know, I don't know Richard personally, but anybody that's served on the Massachusetts State Police for 34 years and has rose to the rank of lieutenant is someone that's a by-the-book type of person who understands fairness, who understands what it means to be a public servant. You don't last 34 years in the Massachusetts State Police and rise to the rank of lieutenant unless you have that type of character and that type of integrity. I just wanted to echo Councilor Marks's sentiments and second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to thank Councilor Marks for bringing this forward and also echo the sentiments of my colleagues. You know, being in law enforcement it's not an easy job, especially now more than ever. And, you know, when you leave to go to work in the morning or whatever shift you're on, you don't know if you're coming back. And to do that for 34 years is an amazing commitment. An amazing commitment. And I just want to congratulate him on a long career, wish him well. And I thank Councilor Marks for bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Marks.
I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention his lovely wife, Mary Ann. And Mary Ann's the one that got him up for work every day, combed his hair, laid out the clothes on the bed, laid out his uniform, and got him to work, Mr. President. And I want to thank Mary Ann, Mr. President, as well.
Thank you. So on the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli has just arrived. Councilor Scarpelli, do you want to vote on this commendation for Lieutenant Mahoney? Yes. Thank you. President Carviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Two 1-353, offered by Councilor Marks. Be it resolved that the city administration notify the Medford City Council whether it is still involved with looking at exception reports as they relate to water and sewer bills, and if the administration still has the capability to run exception reports for uncounted water on behalf of the residents and homeowners of this community. Councilor Marks.
Mr. President, I'll be brief on this. This was what was brought up last week under community participation by former City Councilor Robert Penta. I think it speaks for itself. We're asking for whether or not the city still looks at exception reports, which are reports that show a spike in the usage of water throughout the community, so we can notify residents if they do have a leak within their home or on their property that they're unaware of, Mr. President, and be in charge. So I move approval, Mr. President.
Second.
On motion by Councilor Marks, second by Councilor Falco. Good evening. Pat, if you could put the mic on the podium. Good evening, and name and address to the record, please.
Castanetti, Andrew, Cushing Street.
Is that in Medford?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Marks, for bringing this on the agenda. And I believe last week, Councilor Penta was right when he said back when we installed these meters in 2002, thereabouts, that as Councilor Penta says, they sold us a bill of sale. It's more like a bill of goods. I believe back then it was stated by the department heads in the water and Mr. Gear that if there's an unusual increase in our water meters, that we would be notified through the computer system. And I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it's probably 18 years ago. So a friend of mine received a bill instead of the usual bill. It was like 6 times her bill. And she owns Bella Raviolis. It happened in her home. And she was very upset about it. I guess she used the bathroom downstairs in the cellar and went upstairs and probably didn't go back for 2 more months until she received the bill. Probably 6 times the usual bill. And it's hard for her to make the steps. So very sad. She went to pay the bill or actually question it. And I guess she just paid it, period. As they say, you can't fight City Hall. She's old school.
Mr. Castaneda, there is an abatement process for people that have water bills that have spiked. All she has to do is ask for an abatement with the Water and Sewer Commission, and they will listen to her request.
I'm glad to hear that. So therefore, since the city has approximately $5 million in the so-called water fund account, basically, in my opinion, it's like an overcharge to all us ratepayers. So therefore, if the money's just sitting there, maybe I'm thinking outside the box that the city could figure it out, or the city council, to give us a one-strike, one-time only shot. If it is increased by double and triple or better, that you could forgive it through the $5 million overcharge fund. Just a thought, if you want to take it on the committee of the whole, because sometimes you fight City Hall, if you appeal it, you probably maybe don't have any recourse after the fact. So that's all I wanted to say. You might want to consider something like that with the $5 million.
But the commission does have the authority, the Water and Sewer Commission does have the authority to listen and then say they may, whether if you have medical condition or a senior citizen or whatever you need, they have rules in place now for people that do have water problems, and they do work with them to help them out of this situation. So I do suggest you do that. And again, they do help people out that do, if they have financial means, they can't pay it, they do help them out.
Yes, nothing to do with me at the moment.
So you can inform your friend just to apply, apply for the abatement with the water and sewer. And
Right.
they have a meeting and they can discuss it. She can plead her case there, and they usually, if there's, she's maybe a senior and couldn't get down there to do it. If there's a lot of conditions where they are allowed to give them an abatement on the bill.
All right, because
Please urge you to do that.
to receive a bill that's like 5 or 10 or 20 times your
It
usual,
happens many times.
that might hurt a lot of people who are having struggles in these times. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Council Knox.
just if I could follow up, I appreciate Mr. Castanetti. He always brings reason to a conversation. Mr. President, I think that was the whole, if we recall back some many years ago, as Mr. Castanetti mentioned, some 18 years ago, the whole intent for this system was to draw out any exceptions that we have throughout the community. And it's not that, that we're waiting till something happens and then after the fact say, okay, we just throw money at it. This was to be proactive and say, we're aware that there's spikes within your account and there may be a leak, because ultimately what happens is we don't just forgive a bill. So even if someone gets an abatement, guess who's paying for that? It's the rest of the ratepayers that are paying for that. So the whole logic behind this was to get these spikes ahead of time so we don't have to pay, whether it's through the surplus money, as Mr. Castanetti mentioned, over $5 million, or not approving the abatement and having the resident pay. That was the whole anticipation. And I think what was brought up by Councilor Penta was 100% correct. If that's a service that we pay for, we want to know, indeed, is someone looking at this daily? If so, how many people have been notified in the last year regarding spikes in their water? How many snowbirds may be in Florida and don't realize they have a leak for 4 or 5 months? This is very costly. And if we can work on behalf of the residents through this reporting, then I think we're obligated to do so, Mr. President. And I appreciate Mr. Castanetti coming up.
Thank you, Council Knox. Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco, Vice President Knight. Yes. Counselor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 7 affirmative, motion passes. 2-1-354, offered by Councilor Marks. Be it resolved that administration report back to the Medford City Council the status of the water meters systems in our community, including when and if these meters are being looked at for replacement. Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was another issue that was brought up by Councilor Penta under community participation last week. We couldn't take a vote on it, Mr. President, because our new rules require that it appear on the following agenda for proper notification. So that's why it appears tonight. Mr. President, I support this wholeheartedly. I believe from what we were told that the current city administration is actually looking at the life expectancy of our existing meters. As I spoke last week, we purchased meters back some 18 to 20 years ago because the city was estimating over 50%, 50% of our bills, water and sewer bills, were being estimated. And that's not a way to operate a city, because your bill could either, you could be good and get a lower bill, or you could be on the other end where they're charging you extra of water that you're actually not using. And the best way to do it, Mr. President, is to have an accurate and fair bill. And that's why we went to new meters. And we never want to go down that path again where we had hundreds, I think it was 750 in a year span of abatements that residents, 750 residents came forward and said there was a problem with their water and sewer bill, the way it was being tabulated. And we never want to experience that again. So I'm hoping that the city administration moves forward with notifying this council on what the next steps are to look at our aging water meters to make sure we never experience what we did back some years ago.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Marks. On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Falcon. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President, on that,
Hold on. Vice President Knight.
I think Councilor Penta did make some good points when he spoke last week, when he got to around the year 2015 or 16. I think we started a little far back in time, and then in our way into the present day. But one of those things that he was speaking about that I was really concerned about, was the inflow and infiltration. And I think Councilor Marks has been an advocate for this for a long time. He's been speaking on it for years now at this point. I mean, decades. I think it's been a decade at least that he's been speaking on this. And it's something that I think does warrant some discussion, or at least recommend some commentary from the chairman of our Water Sewer Commission, just to see what's going on. So I wholeheartedly support this resolution. I thank the council for bringing it up. I think sometimes Councilor Penta does a great job giving us information and providing us with initiatives in the community. And, sometimes I don't think that, but in this one, I do think that this is something that we need to take a look at. And I certainly think that it's a worthy cause. So I support the measure wholeheartedly, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilor Marks.
I can't miss an opportunity to speak about I&I. And the council vice president's right. It's been 2 decades that I've been speaking about inflow and infiltration. And it's not a sexy issue, underground, like I always say, out of sight, out of mind, unfortunately. But Mr. President, over the years, we've talked, dating back some many years ago, that someday your water and sewer bill will be higher than your tax bill. And, we're approaching the point where it's getting in that realm. It may not be that close, but it's getting in that realm. And residents would always say, how can we lower our water and sewer rate? And there's really not many ways, Mr. President, other than looking at the infrastructure. And I&I is, all it is water that's seeping. This is rainwater that's seeping into the ground and then finding its way into our sewer system through cracks, through holes, and so forth. That water, which is just rain runoff water, which typically goes into the Mystic River, now is going out to Deer Island and being treated as raw sewage at a great expense to the taxpayers and ratepayers of this community. Multi-million dollars a year goes to I&I. Last check, I think it was about 45 to 50% of I&I in our community is through infiltration. And it's a major concern. It's a major concern to the taxpayers. You hear very little talk about it, but it's happening every year. And it's costing us, Mr. President, every year. So I appreciate Councilor Knight bringing that up. And I think these are the conversations that probably aren't going to be brought to us, but we have to keep on speaking about them, saying what's happening. And I have to say, over the years, the city has made some headway on I&I. They reline pipes. There's a system where you don't even have to dig up the pipe. You just reline it. And it's a real cost-effective, efficient way of relining our pipes. There's another system, Mr. President, we have right now, we have catch basins, which are supposed to catch rain runoff water and send it out to the Mystic. These catch basins are hooked up to our sewer system. So that we know every time it rains, it's going right into our sewer system. And we have ways of indicating where these catch basins are. They drop what they call a smoke bomb into the catch basin. And if it comes out the manhole cover, the sewer system, you know they're connected. So we're aware of at least, last I heard was probably 10 to 12 of these catch basins. Every time it rains, you can imagine the gallons of water that are pouring into our sewer system and going out. Is it expensive to take these catch basins and reline them and make them go where they're supposed to? Absolutely. But is it worthwhile in the long run? Absolutely, Mr. President. So these are the issues I hope we continue to discuss in our community on behalf of the ratepayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Marks. So, on the motion by Council Marks, seconded by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Yes. Council Morrell,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, 7 affirmative, motion passes. 21355, offered by Council Marks. Be it resolved that the submission of the city budget to the city council procedure for approval, rejection, or alteration be discussed. Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I put this on the agenda because our budget process is coming up soon. And I want to make sure that this council is aware of our role during the budget and aware of what we have as recourse when the budget is presented to us. And last week, Mr. President, I was told by an administrative staff that this council has a line item cut authority, which over the years, I guess depending on the administration, I've been told otherwise. I won't speak for my colleagues. And I think we should set the record straight. I looked at Chapter 44, Section 32. I looked at some old opinions from former city solicitors. I looked at a letter from the Department of Revenue that was submitted back in 2014. This council, over the years, not many occasions, has offered cuts to the budget. I remember back some years ago, and this was what I referenced last week, there was a motion to cut the then Assistant Director of DPW because we were in tough budget times, and the motion passed, and the administration decided not to make that line item cut, but cut somewhere else within the budget. There was a motion a while back to take money and cut the water and sewer budget, Mr. President, by over $600,000. This was back in 2014. And the council voted to cut $600,000 and use, if we remember, use the water and sewer surplus account, which you can only use it for two purposes. One is to use it for infrastructure improvements, and the other one is to offset water and sewer costs and rates. So the council said, you have $5 million in the account, and I can't remember the exact dollar amount at the time. Why do we keep on raising the rate? So we thought within the budget that slash this line item by $600,000, take it out of the enterprise account. The mayor at the time, Mayor McGlynn, didn't like that idea, and he vetoed our cut, Mr. President. And then we overrode the mayor's veto, and that stood, actually. But I think it's so crucial now that we understand what our role is, Mr. President, and what our abilities are to make cuts. And I ask that we either contact the Department of Revenue, or we ask for an opinion from the city solicitor, what our responsibilities are on the budget. Do we just make bottom line cuts to departments? Do we just make bottom line cuts in general? From my reading of the Department of Revenue in Chapter 44 of the general laws, it states if we do make bottom line cuts, we also have to indicate where the cut, what lines will be cut. So I think this would be very, I've been on the council a lot of years. When I receive conflicting information, one administration saying you have zero authority over line items, and then another administration saying you have the ability to cut a line item in the last budget, that's conflicting to me. And at the very least, I think we need clarification. So I would ask under your leadership, Mr. President, that we seek out that clarification. And I would put it in the form of a motion that we ask the city solicitor what role the council has in the either approving, rejecting, or cutting line items within the city budget.
Thank you, Councilor Marks. And I agree with this. This is a very important thing with the budget coming up soon. I think this may be something we should discuss in committee of the whole with the solicitor and maybe the director of finance and whoever else we deem necessary. So
I'd like to get someone from the Department of
maybe
Revenue.
if we can get
also.
somebody from the Department of Revenue or Department of Local Services
That's excellent.
to join in the meeting. So I will make some calls tomorrow and see if we can arrange that very soon, sooner than later. Any further discussion?
Mr.
Vice President Knight.
I kind of think that Councilor Marks and Director Nunley are saying the wrong thing. I mean, the same thing, not the wrong thing, the same thing. I think that Director Nunley's saying that we have the ability to reduce by department, but not necessarily line item. So when I read her email and I look at the general law, I think what she's referring to is exactly what Councilor Marks is saying, and it's just really an interpretation issue. My understanding was that we didn't have the right to do line item vetoes, and that's from the Division of Local Services, where because our budget's presented to us by department for ordinary and personnel expenses, we have the right to cut the department saying we want to cut ordinary expenses by X or personnel expenses by Y and take that from the bottom line out of that department. And I think that the Division of Local Services language, if you look at their briefer on it, it would say that the reason that they do that is because that would leave if you didn't do it by department, it would leave the authority up to the mayor to determine where to make the cuts. And the council would, in essence, just be reducing the bottom line of the budget, but not focusing on the department. And I think if we're going to take that steps, the way that we would have to do it is the way that was done in the past when it came to the assistant director of DPW's position. That was the proper and appropriate way to do it. So when it comes to the line item veto, I think that the finance director understands it the same way that we understand it, but she's just saying it differently. Or maybe saying it in a way that we're not necessarily interpreting it to be the same. But, my discussions with her over the week seem to be in line right with what Councilor Marks said. So I'd be interested to have a committee of the whole on this as well, Councilor President Caviello, because I think that this is something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you. So on the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21356, offered by Councilor Scarpelli. Be it resolved that the Traffic Commission reevaluate the permit parking policy on Mystic Street off of High Street. Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. First, before I get into this resolution, I want to thank my colleagues and apologize for my absence in the meeting earlier and for being tardy for a couple of meetings. Sometimes family issues take precedent, and my mom is going through a health crisis, and my brother and sister and I are trying to do the best we can to make sure that she's in a good place, and we're working through some health issues. So again, I appreciate the professionalism and the caring of my fellow councilors and understanding and giving me some leeway. I apologize to my constituents, in the city of Medford, that I have been a little tardy and a little absent. So be sure that I'm still involved with everything that's going on. It's just that I'm doing it bedside, and that's something Mom loves to hear Council Marks say, Mr. President, Mr. President. So that's when we know she's getting better. So I thank everyone for that. So the resolution is very simple. It's the residents from Mystic Street and High Street are really getting beaten up with their public parking. And for what was intended for that area is to eliminate the illegal parking from non-residents to come in and park in front in that neighborhood. We're seeing that Medford Republic Parking is now going in and writing these outrageous tickets for the most outrageous reasons. And for elderly neighbors in that area, if they're parking what is supposedly a curb, but is not a curb, somewhere where they parked forever, that's just a level land, they're getting ticketed for something simple as parking on a sidewalk. And so it just seems like they're trying to fill a quota and they're going out to those areas and really affecting that neighborhood in a negative way. So I'd like to send that resolution to the parking commission and traffic commission, and maybe to set up a meeting with the neighbors just so they can share some concerns, and maybe invite them to the next traffic commission meeting that they can really they can understand what's going on. So maybe they can put in some changes in that area of Mystic Street. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice President Knight.
On that, Mr. President, how long has Mystic Street been permanent parking?
I appreciate Council Vice President, I bring this up. This is the confusion with the neighbors that Republic Parking has now, everybody should know that they can go into any neighborhood now. And they've been, if you parked outside your driveway that you parked for many years and your end is sticking out a little bit, they're ticketing you overnight for parking on the curb, or, even if they're ticketing for police action where a sticker might be expired. So these are things people don't realize that is still happening with Republic Parking. So, like I said, if we can at least look at that neighborhood, and if we have to go neighborhood to neighborhood, I think this is it'll be a bigger issue than it is. I think this is just scratching the top, and I'm glad that we heard the mayor talk about today in the earlier meeting that looking to bring in in-house traffic and parking, which I think is a great idea and something that Council Marks worked on for years to make that come to fruition. So, but again, thank you, Council Knight. Sorry for jumping.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. The reason I bring it up is because I'm thinking back now, we got a lot of construction going on High Street right now. And it wasn't too long ago that several members of this council stood up and tried to secure some parking spots along that stretch of High Street when this construction project was going in. And the response that we got from the administration was that the traffic engineer did a dashboard survey and feels as though there's adequate parking in that area for the residents, and that this would cause no disruption whatsoever. Now we're seeing the construction started, last Monday? And now Park Medford is in the neighborhood tagging all the secondary streets off of High Street, which leads me to believe that maybe the dashboard survey that was conducted might not have been the most accurate assessment of the parking needs of the neighborhood. But that horse is out of the barn, Mr. President. That project is underway. We've accepted the funding, $1 million from the state, and that project is underway. A little bit about the project. With the Eversource project that's going on along Winthrop Street and the High Street project that's going on along High Street, every street in between Winthrop and High that run parallel to each other looks like a loading yard for a construction crew, whether it be the Eversource project or the High Street project. There's just trucks parked all over every single neighborhood. I mean, I drove down a street today, Mystic Street, the street that Councilor Scarpelli's talking about, Upper Mystic in front of Tile Park. And there was like a rig that took up 19 parking spots. You know what I mean? All heavy equipment that was there all day long. There has to be a better way, Mr. President. If we want to put these improvements in, that's one thing. But can we do it in a way that's, maybe a little bit less detrimental to the neighborhood? Maybe a little bit, kinder to the eye. Because right now, it seems like that Winthrop Street stretch, these residents are getting croaked. I mean, it's between the Rotary, the Eversource project, the water pipe replacement project. They've been under construction now for 8 years. 8 years. So there has to be some relief in sight, Mr. President. I thank the council for bringing it up. And I'm hoping that the administration, as she said, hears it loud and clear. She hears the council loud and clear when we talk. So I'm hoping that this makes it to the corner office. That, we need to come up with a better plan when it comes to engineering and permitting, ground opening and construction projects, that we need to come up with a better plan that doesn't impact the neighborhood so much. Because what I feel like's happening in this community is someone gets a permit from the engineering department, and then they can do whatever they want. They can dig wherever they want, park wherever they want, leave their equipment, their debris, their materials, wherever they want. And it's starting to take an effect, Mr. President. The weather's getting nicer. People are opening their windows. People are spending more time outside. This isn't what they want to see in their community. So with that being said, I thank the council for bringing the measure forward. I support it wholeheartedly.
Mr. President,
Council Scarpelli.
if I can, I know that you triggered something, Council Knight, that I found fascinating. So what we're seeing with the Winthrop Street project of Eversource, this past week, driving back and forth to see my mom in Woburn, I go through Winchester and often get trapped by the construction workers. What I found that's amazing is all of the construction trucks that are in Winchester drive all the way down. They pull into the T parking lot, and they park all of the utility trucks and all the apparatus for the construction in that parking lot on a daily basis. But like Councilor Knight says, in Medford, they just leave all their trucks and their apparatus and their metal plates and cones and everything up and down Winthrop Street. So I think that, that brings us up a huge point that, to mend the paper, that we ask again that Eversource looks into cleaning up that area with eliminating all of the debris and machinery that deals with this construction. So again, thank you, Council Knight, for bringing that up.
Council Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I want to thank Councilor Scarpelli, Vice President Knight. If you wouldn't mind a further amendment, Councilor Scarpelli, I'd also like to ask that the city engineer and traffic engineer try to determine a lot where potentially we could do the same thing that Winchester's doing.
Council Bears, if I can answer that for you, the construction company rents a lot in Medford currently. So they do have a lot in Medford where they do park their trucks. So they should be driving this not that far. They should be driving the trucks back there.
I agree with that. I had one further comment, Mr. President.
Yes.
Have you received any update from the city engineer or Eversource as to expediting the Eversource project as we discussed several weeks ago?
We have not. I think it was up to the police chief because Eversource wanted 3 crews, and I think the chief has told him that they don't have the manpower to put 3 crews of policemen on the 3 crews that Eversource is requesting.
And it's still, I know that we had asked that they try to come to an agreement.
I've only, when I'm out, I only see 1 crew working at a time.
All right.
And if I could put a comment on this, I want to thank Councilor Scarpelli for bringing this up. That's my neighborhood where I live. They've been working there for the last 2 weeks, and they're parking cars, trucks on both ends and other side streets, and they leave them all night and in the school parking lot. And if you live on Mystic Street, there's very few sidewalks there. There's only maybe 1 or 2 sidewalks, mostly all grass lot and things. So it's a shame that they just continue to do whatever they want. And what's happening also is they're directing, they're shutting High Street down at different points and just sending it through the neighborhoods. And now these cars are roaring through neighborhoods and, just not even pay attention to the law. And if I could say one more thing on what Councilor Scarpelli brought up about the construction between Medford and Winchester, I'm appalled that they're using our cemetery to lay down all those plates and ruin the grass. And I'd like to amend this paper that those plates be removed immediately and the grass be replaced.
Yeah.
Mr. President?
Should be ashamed of themselves.
Absolutely.
Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Councilor Scarpelli for bringing this forward and Councilor Knight for mentioning the Eversource project. If I could amend the paper further to specifically look at, I believe it is at the end of Lorraine Road, there is a piece of construction equipment that has been there. I know it was there pretty much for like the past couple of weeks that they park it there on the street after hours, which is completely against the agreement that we struck with them when this went into effect, this construction project many years ago. From what I remember, there's supposed to be no construction equipment on the road after hours. That has been violated. So if we could, if I could please amend the paper to ask specifically why that piece of equipment is there. And I also thank you for bringing up the point about the metal plates. The metal plates have been there for a long time. And I believe we inquired about them many times and they still haven't removed them. So I thank you for adding that amendment. And I look forward to hearing a response soon from Eversource. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that point, Mr. President, the
Vice
council,
President Knight.
I do believe when the council had first met with representatives from the city administration and Eversource at the suggestion of Councilor Marks, one of the items that came up was that as a condition of permitting, they not leave equipment, materials, or use city property for staging. And that they agreed that they were going to take everything at the end of the day and get it out of there. The trucks weren't going to travel alone if they weren't a licensed vehicle. The backhoes and excavators were going to be escorted with a truck in front of it and behind it so that no one would get hurt, because we remember what happened to Mrs. Mandarini and one of our crossing guards as well, I believe, right? Down in West Memphis Square, where they got hit during a construction project when they were doing some work down there. I believe it was the Complete Streets project, Mr. President, in front of the Brook School, where two residents was struck by construction vehicles because they didn't have proper safety protocols in place. So then I believe the Eversource project was put out to bid, and I think Feeney Construction got it, right? The Feeney brother construction firm got it.
McCourt.
And then Feeney backed out of the bid. And then it ended up getting awarded to McCourt. But the discussions that we had initially, I think we're all with Feeney brothers. And I'm wondering if those restrictions and requirements that the council asked me put in place on the permits carried over when the entity that was performing the work had changed.
Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Scarpelli for putting this on. He's 100% right on all these issues. Council Vice President Knight is correct. We put a laundry list of conditions, and the staging, I think, was your condition. I remember you speaking about having a staging area set up so they can put, the equipment in trucks. I think it's vital, Mr. President, that we find out who the clerk of the work is on behalf of the city of Medford. We also should be asking this person if they're adhering to all the conditions, because let's be quite honest. I'm not looking, and I'm not on that job site every day to make sure that they're adhering to all these. But clearly, if you take a ride by, you're seeing the equipment left overnight. Clearly, I forget who brought it up last week. Can't remember if it was Councilor Beers or Councilor Knight or Councilor Scarpelli about sweeping after every day's work. And we were notified, and maybe Councilor Falco, I apologize. Councilor, and these things aren't happening, Mr. President. When we also discussed, we made a recommendation about having the 3 crews be put back. When you have area residents on Winthrop Street reaching out saying, we've already had to put up with this for the last year and a half, 2 years, and if you want to extend the project by not having enough crews, that just makes my life more miserable. So we're already hearing this from residents. So it's unacceptable for the chief, Mr. President. And if he was on the line, I'd say it right to his face. It's unacceptable that the chief unilaterally is going to make a decision to slow down a project that we've been working on for the past 5 years, Mr. President. And that's impacting residents now. It's unacceptable. Unless he can tell me it's a public safety concern. If you can't get enough officers on the detail, Mr. President, go outside the community. They do it every day. Go outside the community, find some officers, Mr. President, that want to fill the detail. But to slow down a project of this magnitude and have residents put up with this, it's unacceptable. It's extremely unacceptable. So I agree with Council Vice President Knight. We should find out what that laundry list of conditions are from the clerk of the works. Find out who the clerk of the works is, first of all, and have a discussion regarding that. Regarding the parking program, Mr. President, I believe the parameters within Park Medford, their contract, only states that they can operate on resident permit parking streets. They cannot operate outside of that contract. So if indeed they are going around giving out tickets on non-resident permit parking streets, then we should be notified of that and find out when this change took place, why it took place, Mr. President. And maybe this was their decision and they want to increase their revenue. I don't know. But that's not the way we should operate. If we have a signed contract, we should operate within the four walls of the contract. And that's my last impression of that contract, that it was only on resident permit parking streets. Thank you, Mr. President.
So on the motion by Council Scarpelli, seconded by.
Second.
Second by Council Falco, as amended by Council Bears, as amended by Council Caraviallo, and as amended by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, you have all those amendments, correct? Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Counselor Marks,
Yes.
Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli. Yes. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. The motion by Vice President Knight to take paper 21351 off the table, seconded by Council Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears,
Yes.
Counselor Falco. Vice President.
Yes.
Marks. Yes. Counselor Morrell,
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 21351 offered by Vice President Knight. Whereas the voice of our city's youth has been restricted throughout COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas the youth in the city of Medford represent not only our future, but our present ends, whereas our youth deserve every opportunity to flourish and be provided with the resources and services necessary to meet the challenges and problems they face. Be it so ordered that the Medford City Council adopt the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40, Section 80, enabling the establishment of a youth commission for the purpose of carrying out the programs which may be designed or established to meet the opportunities, challenges, and problems of youth in the city of Medford. And be it resolved, the Medford City Council requests that the city solicitor provide the Medford City Council with a draft ordinance. The language of Section 8E can be found below for the following reference purposes. Section 8E. The
Mr.
city,
President, you don't have to get into that.
sorry?
I have it all highlighted out so I can read it for you if you'd like.
I'll read it. A city or town which accepts this section may establish a youth commission herein have called the commission. The purpose of carrying out programs which may be designed or established to meet the opportunities, challenges, and problems of youth of said city, town, in conjunction with any similar or related programs of any agency of the Commonwealth or any agency of the federal government. It shall keep accurate records of its meetings and actions. It shall file an annual report, which shall be printed in the case of the towns in the annual town report. The commission may appoint such clerks and other employees as it may from time to time require. The commission shall consist of not less than 3, no more than 21 members. In cities, the members shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the provision of the city charter, except in the cities that having or operating under Plan D or provision of the city charter. Such appointments shall be made by the city, subject to the provision of charter. In the towns, they should be appointed by the selectmen, excepting towns having a manager or form of government, which towns appointments shall be made by the town manager, subject to approval of the selectmen. When the commission is first established, the terms of the members shall be for 1, 2, or 3 years, and so arranged that the terms of approximately 1/3 of the members will expire each year, and their successors shall be appointed for a term of 3 years each. Any member of the commission so appointed may, after public meeting, if requested, be removed for cause by the appointing authority. A vacancy occurring otherwise by the expiration of a term in a city or town shall be filled for the unexpired term in the same manner as the original appointment. Said commission may receive gifts of property, both real and personal, in the name of the city or town, subject to the approval of the city council in the city where the selectmen in the town, such gifts managed and controlled by the commission for purposes of this selection. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. So what this paper is it's a request for the city council to adopt a local option provided by the Massachusetts State Legislature to establish a youth commission. And I wouldn't expect the council to adopt the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 80 this evening. I'd be happy to send this to a committee of the whole to be further discussed with the city solicitor. However, Mr. President, the intent of this is to give the youth in our community a voice. You know, we have commissions for everything, but we don't have a commission for probably the most valuable asset in this community, our youth. So with that being said, I think this is a step in the right direction, Mr. President. Looking at the language that you just read, I appreciate you going through that. Ultimately, what this would do would establish a commission from not less than 3 and not more than 21 persons that serve for a term of 3 years, appointed by the mayor, subject to the provisions of the charter. The city council can also create an ordinance that will go along with that, that would outline and define parameters as to who's eligible to serve, similar to many of the other ordinances this council's passed relative to the creation or establishments of boards and commissions. So with that being said, Mr. President, this will be a statutory commission. It's something that I think is necessary in this community, especially based on the high levels of isolation that our youth have seen across Medford over the past year. Just finally, we're finally getting out to the ball fields. We're finally getting out of the house with the vaccinations moving along in the right direction. But I think it's important, Mr. President, that we create a mechanism for us to actually hear directly from our youth and to let them be a voice. We've seen what great work the CCSR has done up at the high school. Great work it's done in getting youth engaged in the government processing and getting them to be civically responsible. And I think that this is just adding to that, Mr. President. It's a step in the right direction for us to continue to build upon the many successes that we've already had in engaging our youth and getting them to be involved civically. So in looking at this, Mr. President, I think it's a great opportunity for us to move forward and create something that could make a difference here in the city of Medford. So with that being said, Mr. President, I rest my case. I ask my council colleagues to support this. The motion will be to send it to a committee of the whole for further review and discussion, and for us to also ask the city solicitor to be present, so that if it is the council's intent to move forward with this, she can draft a ordinance that would support it. So with that being said, I would rest my case, Mr. President, refer the floor to Councilor Scarpelli.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Thank you, Mr. President. And what an unbelievable resolution, because it's funny because I've been searching and trying to figure out in our subcommittee with Recreation Youth what we can do to try to have this city council step forward to give the youth their voice in a way that they can be heard. And with today's, social justice issues and the outcry of our students and children in our community, the city truly doesn't allow an avenue where they can come to this forum or have an avenue with this forum in the city side to really express their concerns, their issues, and their wishes. Council night, typical council night, studies every day, looks at every single what every single community does, finds what best fits the city of Medford and how we can help our constituents and our most important constituents, our children. So I want to applaud you again for finding this topic to push forward a very important agenda. I remember when I first started in Somerville, we had set up a recreation commission, a commission that really focuses on doing some fundraising through the city with the recreation department that would allow kids that couldn't afford different sports or different participation fees for programs, and made sure everybody had an opportunity to participate. Not only that, they worked together. One of my first years there, I thought was amazing. We were having some serious issues in Somerville with some social justice issues and some suicide issues. And they worked together with the school department and the commission and teen empowerment to have a round table forum for our youth to come out and speak of what they wanted. And to be honest with you, it's one of the reasons why I love my position in Somerville as a program developer, where my door's open. I can't tell you how many times a young man and young lady came to my door and sat down in front of me in my office and said, Coach, I really want to do this. Now, what was important is the typical recreation. People think of what's traditionally recreation, sports, games, activities. What came out of that, those conversations, and having the ability to have a commission, are kids that needed other outlets. whether it be music, whether it be arts, whether it be band, whether it be, different social issues and having, different type of clubs arranged through our commission. So this is something our community needs. This is something that Council Knight said, did his homework. This is where we can put people that are invested in our youth and want to work together. And I'll tell you what, there's 100,000 fundraisers that go out there, but something simple as having a commission that works together that will hold a golf tournament. This is what we did in Somerville, held a golf tournament. Then they did a road race. And not only did they bring the community out, they raised valuable funds for kids at risk or youth that wanted to do something different. And there was there was never a no. It was always an avenue to do something positive. In today's climate, where our kids really need a voice, and, I'm so glad that they have the teachers to reach out to and the CCSR, because I think, our advisors have done an amazing job. But this is a piece where if we sat in the round table when we talked about race issues in our community, one thing that came out of those meetings is really putting our foot forward and really putting things into action. You talked earlier about the diversity director, and I think everybody says we need that as a full-time position, and we all support that. And I'm glad to see my councils stood strong with that to make sure that's a standalone program. You look at something Council Knight just brought up with the commission, these are the types of initiatives that really lend to what people are asking for. So I know I'm a little winded, but I'm really passionate about this. This is what I do in my life. I want to see kids succeed and find avenues to help them succeed. And Council Knight again, 1 week it's Council Marks, and other weeks yourself. And I appreciate your commitment to this community and your professionalism when it comes to this committee. You guys, this is spot on, and I second the motion and love to see this move forward. So thank you.
Council Bears.
Thank you. I actually saw Councilor Morel, so I'm happy to defer to her.
Sure, I'll go first. Thank you, Mr. President. I think Councilor Bears is first, but I'll just go for the sake of being quick. I think Vice President Knight for raising this. I think this is a great opportunity for the youth of Medford and really for the city of Medford itself. And I agree with what's been said, that the students in CCSR do such great work and are so engaged and have come before the council many times with many great ideas that they've really pushed for and presented in such a great way. So I'd expect nothing less than them and the rest of our youth in the city who might want to take part in this. And I would hope that this commission can really reflect the diversity of the city, which is something that I know is also hope for the Gender Equity Commission that has been in the works for some 2 years now. So would love to see both of those come to fruition. Thank you.
Council Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really appreciate Vice President Knight bringing this forward and what Councilor Scarpelli said. And I think it's a great way to link the great work that's being done in our schools with the city government. And hopefully, I think these students actually have some policy ideas that hopefully we could consider as well. But I did also want to lift up, I would hope that we can advance the Gender Equity Commission promptly as well alongside the Youth Commission. And I will put a plug in for the Pilot Commission on Payments in Lieu of Taxes that I proposed last January. I think all of these commissions are worthy efforts that would really benefit the city.
Thank you. Council Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Vice President Knight for bringing this forward. This is a key resolution, and Councilor Scarpelli, you're right. It gives the youth of our community a voice, and that's really important. If you take a look at CCSR, remember when that first came about when we were on the school committee, that program has grown tremendously throughout the years. And you look at the good works that the students have been doing throughout the years, the programs, the things that they've come to propose to us with regards to ordinances and whatnot. And it's a great way for them to be involved in public service and giving back to the community. So I support this 100%. I look forward to discussing this further in committee of the whole. Vice President Knight, I thank you for bringing this forward, and I would also second the resolution. Thank you.
Council Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Council Vice President Knight for bringing this up, and Councilor Scarpelli for his passion on this issue. He's been dealing with the youth of our community for many decades, and I think has his finger on the pulse. Anytime you can expand the seat at the table where decisions are being made, I think is a positive step. And to have youth involved in decision-making, I think is a very positive step in this community. I remember the days back some years ago, Mr. President, the council, under the leadership of the president of the council, would allow members to invite a business owner behind the reel, invite a student behind the reel, invite any one of your choice per week, Mr. President, and they would sit right next to you, and they would have input. Naturally, they didn't have a vote, but they would have input during the meeting and be able to discuss and give input about how this may impact, their business or impact their life or impact their family or whatever it might be, Mr. President. And I just thought it was a great way of, all too often you hear people saying that they don't have a seat at the table or they're left out of the process. And that was just a nice way of including members of the community. And I really would like to see us get back into that, Mr. President. And maybe under your leadership, we can once again reignite that and allow the council members to invite someone behind the reel of their choice, Mr. President, to partake in city government. But getting back to this, I support this wholeheartedly. I support anything that would bring additional people to the table and therefore get additional opinions on how city government should operate. And I support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Council Marks. But Council Marks, I'd love to get some bodies in here and be more than happy to bring someone up here. The room is open. If some students want to come in, we'd be more than happy to have them in here. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you. I just wanted to point out there's some differences between this commission and the commissions that were mentioned. And, this commission is statutory in nature, so this would be adopting a local option that's been provided to us by the state legislature. And because it's statutory in nature, there is a defined framework and parameters that are already in place that we have to work within. So quite frankly, this might be one of the easiest things we've ever had to do in our life because the law pretty much says what's required in the ordinance and at the local level. So when we're talking about the Gender Equity Commission, which started out as, I believe, a women's commission and then turned into a Gender Equity Commission with investigatory authority and all this other stuff. And I quite frankly, I think that during that discussion about the gender equity stuff, I think a lot of the message got lost in the process, Mr. President, what it was we were trying to accomplish. We got, I think, a little bit too involved with the minutia and the details, bringing it down to the lowest possible level when we could have been able to put a framework together in a much more timely fashion. So I can certainly appreciate the frustration that Councilor Morell has expressed. However, this is a little bit different than that situation because this is something that's statutory in nature. By adopting the enabling language, we already have the defined parameters and frameworks that's necessary for us to move forward. So with that being said, I do thank my council colleagues for their kind words and I'd move for approval on the bill.
Thank you, Vice President Knight. Okay, on the motion by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. To refer to a committee of the whole. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 is affirmative, motion passes. Communications from the mayor. 21357, to the Honorable President, members of the Medford City Council, City Hall, Medford, Mass. Dear Mr. President and City Councilors, I respectfully request to recommend that your own body approve the following recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, requesting the appropriation of $62,500 from the CPA General Reserve to Action for Boston Community Development for the remainder of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. The project will be tracked in the Community Preservation Fund by category of affordable housing. Sincerely, Brianna Longo Curran, Mayor. Do we have somebody from the CPA? Roberta, are you going to be speaking? Mr. Clerk, if you can unmute Roberta Cameron for a brief presentation.
Thank you. So the council had previously approved all but the 62,500 of the 250,000 that the CPC recommended for an emergency rental assistance program last year in response to the COVID-19 crisis. So the ABCD has so far spent close to 100, or they've expended close to $160,000 of the funds toward assisting Medford residents with their rental payments, and have an additional set of applications in the pipeline that would bring them up to about $170,000 that they would have spent toward paying for the rental assistance. So they are running close to the end of the funds that the council has approved to date. And so we're coming back to ask that the council approve the remaining funds to enable them to finish the program that we recommended for them last year.
Thank you. Any questions for Roberta Cameron? Hearing seen none. The motion by Council Scarpelli for approval, seconded by Council Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Morell.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
To suspend the rules to take paper 2086. 20086, I'm sorry.
On the motion by Vice President Knight to take paper 2080086 off the table, seconded by Council Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bears.
Yes.
Counselor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight.
Yes.
Counselor Marks. Yes. Counselor Morell.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
20806, 90-day review report on El Tacuba Cochina and Tequila Bar for petition for a special permit. I was granted by this council as amended to require 90-day report to begin on opening the restaurant. Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, El Tacuba Cochina and Tequila Bar is probably one of the most frequent questions I get asked when I go through Medford. When is this place opening? When is this place opening? When is this place opening? I know we've had a tough year, Mr. President, in terms of the economy, the shutdown, the pandemic, and the like. But with that being said, from what I can see, they have a building permit in the window still. The window is still wrapped up, like there's some construction going on inside. And I'm hoping that we could just shoot off a correspondence by authorizing the city clerk to do such, asking for an update on the status of their expansion from Tanock to El Tacuba Cochina and Tequila Bar, Mr. President. I know that a lot of that business plan was contingent upon the reopening of Shebyer Auditorium. And from what I heard this morning, or earlier in the meeting, I should say, from Director of the Board of Health was, it seems very promising that we're going to have events there at some point in time in the near future. So with that being said, hopefully we can kind of get a little update as to what's going on with El Tacuba and also with what's going on at Shebyer Auditorium, Mr. President. So I'd ask the city clerk to send off an email, provided that my council colleagues support this resolution, to reach out to the business owner and just ask what's the status. This was a license that was granted by the council and it was placed on a list for a 90-day review, 90 days after opening. The 90 days, 2020, I think the summer of 2020, maybe June of 2020.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Last year.
Yeah, so it's been a bit of time, and you know, that's okay. But I'm just more curious than anything else, Mr. President, as to what the status is. And, you know, if nothing, then maybe this is something that we refer up to our new Director of Economic Development. If in fact there are some hurdles or some problems that this business faces in expanding, because there's so much community excitement for it, there might actually be a resource there in City Hall that can help them cut through some of the red tape or find some creative ways to meet some of the needs that they have. I think that was, you know, the whole goal and purpose of us creating the position of Director of Economic Development. So with that being said, Mr. President, maybe the this can be the first project that he gets assigned, and now we can see if Alta Cuba can open.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I do remember the mayor going in there sometime during the year. I think I saw it on Twitter or somewhere. I know she did a little walkthrough there. But I think it's been some time. I can give you a little bit of an answer on Shabaya. I know they are planning some things in the very near future there, but unfortunately, with their limited capacity, and they're going to have, I think, just comedians at the moment because of the cost of the acts and and the amount of people. But I think you will see some stuff coming on there, some announcement in the next few weeks, Vice President Knight. Thank you, sir. So on the motion by Vice President Knight that we get a report on this in Shabaya. Second by Council Falco. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Council Marks, Council Morrell,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Carviallo.
Yes, 70 affirmative, motion passes. Motion to revert back to regular business.
So moved, Mr. President.
On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Council Scarpelli. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Council Marks, Council Morrell,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Carviallo.
Yes, 70 affirmative, motion passes. Reports of committees. 21018, April 21st, 2021, Committee of the Whole report. This was on the classification report, which was tabled to this evening. Which would be the same one, April 29th. I will do one at a time. Motion to accept the report on April 21st. Motion by Council Scarpelli, second by Vice President Knight. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight,
Yes.
Council Marks, Council Morrell,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Carviallo.
Yes, 70 affirmative, motion passes. 21324, April 27th, 2020. Committee of the Whole report. This was for the CBDG grant funding. Motion by Vice President Knight for approval, second by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight, Council Marks, Council Morrell,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Carviallo.
Yes, 70 affirmative, motion passes. 20300 and 21053, April 28th, Subcommittee on Elderly Housing Affairs. Councilor Bears, would you like to report on that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilors Marks and Falco. We had two great subcommittee meetings. This first one is on Elderly and Housing Affairs. We discussed housing stability, and I got an update from our folks in our health department about how housing is being incorporated into the social work that they are doing from Alicia and Penny. We reported out a motion from the subcommittee to recommend that the mayor include $50,000 in the fiscal year 22 budget to continue emergency rental assistance. And it'd be possible that the city administration could pursue additional grants as well. We also discussed Councilor Falco's proposal for a housing stability notification ordinance. We will be getting a red line copy from the city solicitor and discussing that at our next meeting. And I move approval.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco.
Mr. President,
Councilor Marks.
thank you, Mr. President. Just one clarification, and I want to thank Chairman Beers and Council Falco. I think we're making some real headway on housing issues within our community. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the 50,000 that we asked to be in the budget was for housing assistance and not rental assistance.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, sorry, I just want to clarify because I know there was some contention around why not just make a general statement regarding housing assistance and not rental. So I just want the record to reflect I believe it's housing assistance.
Yes, and that is reflected in the actual report. I apologize. I just used the wrong word.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
On the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco,
Yes.
Vice President Knight, Yes. Counselor Marks.
Yes.
Counselor Morel.
Yes.
Counselor Scarpelli. Yes. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. 20573, April 28th, 2020, Public Works Subcommittee, Councilor Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, once again, Councilor Marks, Councilor Falco, and myself met this time to discuss snow removal with the Public Works Subcommittee. We did have a discussion again of the priority sidewalks list, and we did make a motion to recommend that the city administration issue an RFI or find another way to determine the cost of a city priority sidewalk pilot program and to include that in the next snow and ice removal plan. We also had extensive discussion of the ordinance language. We did make some motions to accept changes, and we will be looking at a red line copy at our next meeting with the solicitor, along with Commissioner Moki and code enforcement to discuss the enforcement section of the ordinance.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Bears.
Can I just ask a quick question on that, Mr. President?
Vice President Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I was contacted with some concern that the sidewalk snow removal processes would be something that would be privatized or subcontracted. Is that the intention or the desire of the direction that the committee is going in? I had brief conversation with Councilor Marks, and he seemed rather indifferent. He doesn't care who does it as long as it gets done. But I didn't know if this was something where we were looking to get a private crew that will go out and do it, or if this is something that we would try to adopt in-house. I know this council in the past has voted multiple times for us to purchase a bombardier to go and clear our sidewalks. So I was just wondering if there was any focus on having this done privately or having this done as a government contractor as part of the normal and regular DPW operations.
If I may, Mr. President.
Or not, it's all up in the air for discussion. I think that's the question. I got a call from Steve South, who had some questions about how this was going to play out, and I'm just hoping I can get some answers.
Councilor Bears.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we discussed both them looking for a contract to do it, and also did mention that I believe Councilor Marks mentioned, and we were all supportive of the idea of doing it in-house, purchasing the machines and identifying the manpower to do so. So we are waiting back to hear from the city administration what their determination is on cost for both of those ideas.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
No.
Mr. President.
Councilor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Chairman Beers and Councilor Falco. I have to say, we've been working on this ordinance for a period of time, but we're finally making some serious headway. And I think, Mr. President, it's not going to be just a knee-jerk reaction. It's a very thoughtful process. And I think, the ordinance itself, which has some accountability within the ordinance, which I think will go a long way for improving pedestrian safety. But secondly, Mr. President, I think adding a component of city responsibility. The ordinance originally was a focus on residents. Residents have to clear the corners. Residents have to clear the sidewalks. They have to clear the front of the hydrants. Residents have to do this. Residents have to do that. And I think the subcommittee, after digesting some of this, said, you know what? In order to get a buy-in from the residents, we need the city to also step up and take responsibility. And I think what we found is by offering this priority sidewalk, where we're looking at 26 miles of arterial roads. So every road that's currently being swept right now in our pilot program will now become part of, over a certain amount of inches, will now become part of an automatic plow that goes on the sidewalk and plow the sidewalk over a certain number of inches. What that does, as we've discussed, myself, Councilor Falco, and Chairman Beers, is create the connectivity that we're talking about from business district to business district, from school to school, from elderly housing to elderly housing, from bus stop to bus stop, and it creates that automatic connectivity. And for the amount that we're looking at, for upwards of $3,000 to $4,000 on an average snowstorm for a city this size, I think we all felt that this is our biggest bang for our buck to implement such a program. How it gets implemented, whether we outsource or see if we can handle it in-house, still remains, and still a work in progress, but I think we've made a lot of headway in improving pedestrian safety. And I would welcome Steve South to any one of our open meetings. They've all been open. We've had members of the Chamber of Commerce. We've had members of Walk Method. We've had members of Walk Boston attend our meetings and give input. And we're always welcome to hear input, Mr. President, on how we can better improve this process. You know, the big issue that we've been struggling with is the crossings. So right now, the ordinance states that the homeowner that lives at the corner would be responsible for clearing out the crossing. And as we all know, many of the trucks plow to the corners, and in a big storm, you could have 4, 5, 6 feet of ice. And how do you have a homeowner that's going to be responsible for clearing that out? So part of the process for the priority sidewalk was to have 26 miles of these corners cleaned out automatically with these bombardiers. And we're still trying to create a process that we can have snow carted off, or we can have a better policy on the city side where they don't plow directly to corners. So there's some administrative stuff we can work on, some ordinance stuff, and maybe some contractual stuff to help improve pedestrian safety in this community. And I just want to thank my colleagues. We've put a lot of hours into this, and I hope eventually when we present it to the council for their input, that they'll see the amount of hours that we put into this and, you know, have their input as well, but see that really, I think this makes a lot of sense for our community. And again, I want to thank Chairman Beers and Councilor Falco for their input on this. And the DPW Commissioner as well. He's been instrumental in this process, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Thank you for clarification. Councilor Bears.
I just want to thank Councilor Marks, and you know, my usual intention around these is to keep them short, but I think I might get in touch with Councilor Marks next time so I can do it the full justice that he just did. So thank you.
Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Councilor Marks and Councilor Beers. These subcommittee meetings have been very, very productive. Like Councilor Marks mentioned, there's been a lot of input from business owners, the community, the department heads, and different organizations. And I look forward to working with them to you know, resolve these issues and bring them to a future committee of the whole meeting. But they've been very productive meetings, and I look forward to working with them to bring everything to fruition. So thanks again to the Councilor Marks and Councilor Beers for their hard work on these issues.
Thank you, Councilor Falco.
Thank you.
So, on the motion by Councilor Bears, seconded by Councilor Falco. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. President, if I could,
Councilor Marks.
just for the edification, you know, Councilor Beers gave a great explanation. I just don't want anyone to think that we didn't share the information as we go along. So at no time could someone say, geez, I didn't know they were working on that. We laid it all out on the table, what we've been looking at. If anyone wants to give input at this particular stage, they're welcome to do so. This has been an open and notorious process, and we welcome input at any time.
Thank you, Councilor Marks. So, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli. Yes. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, the motion passes. 21018, April 29th, Committee of the Whole Report. This also was a classification meeting, and this was tabled to tonight, which there was a vote on, which will be on next week's committee report. So, on the motion by Councilor Knight by Vice President to receive and place on file, move approval, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Bears.
Yes.
Councilor Falco.
Yes.
Vice President Knight. Yes. Councilor Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Morell.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli. Yes. President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Public participation. Joseph A. Biglione, 446 Charles Street in Malden. Good evening. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, City Council. Joe Viglione, The night police report is what I want to discuss. It was,
Name and address for the record, please.
446 Charles Street, Malden, Mass.
Mr. Biglione, I have reviewed the petitioner's application, and I have determined that this is not the forum for this paper, and I am going to rule it out of order.
Of course you would.
And
I knew
thank you
that.
very much. And this will be referred to executive session. And I base this on Rule 2A of the City Council rules, the open meeting law, and discussions with our city solicitor.
Okay, great. May I come to that? Oh, what's executive session?
Your paper's been ruled out of order.
Well, I do appreciate you doing that, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You have a good night. Okay, do we have any further business this evening? Records. The records of the meeting of April 27, 2021 were passed to Vice President Knight. Vice President Knight, how did you find those records? On the motion by Vice President Knight, seconded by Councilor Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco, Vice President Knight, Council Marks,
Yes.
Council Morel,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Caraviallo.
Yes, 7 in the affirmative, motion passes. Motion to adjourn. The motion by Vice President Knight for adjournment, seconded by Council Scarpelli. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Council Bears,
Yes.
Council Falco, Vice President Knight, Council Marks,
Yes.
Council Morel,
Yes.
Council Scarpelli, President Caraviallo.
Yes, motion to adjourn. Good evening.